Let me ask you something few people ever do. When was the last time you touched yourself? Not out of habit or boredom, but with intention. Most men over 60 have never been invited into that kind of question. Most were never given permission to ask it, let alone explore it. And for too many, it's been decades since they last felt truly connected to their own body in that way. Instead, they were told a different story. That masturbation is something teenage boys do in secret. That men over a certain age shouldn't need it. That past 60, you're expected to move on, to grow out desire, grow into silence, and trade vitality for stillness. But what if that story is completely backwards? What if the very thing we've been told to let go of is one of the few tools left to help us stay healthy, vibrant, and connected? My name is not important right now. What matters is that I've spent the last 30 years listening, really listening, to men who spent a lifetime being silent about this. And what I've learned is simple, but urgent. Masturbation is not a phase you grow out of. For older men, it may be one of the last lines of defense against the kind of slow decline that medicine can't fix, because it starts not in the body, but in the nervous system. Let me show you what I mean. The lie that got passed down. Growing up, most men were taught two things about masturbation. One, that it was dirty. Two, that they'd eventually grow out of it, or at least should. But if you look beyond the stigma and shame, the science tells a very different story. Regular, healthy self-touch isn't just normal. It's part of your body's maintenance system. It's how your nervous system recalibrates. It's how your hormones stay active. It's how you remind your body, I'm still here. I still want to live fully. Yet, I've watched countless men arrive in my office ashamed. Men who once commanded rooms, built businesses, raised families. Now slouched, eyes lowered, shoulders tense, trying to describe what they don't even know how to name. I just don't feel much anymore. I try, but it's not like it used to be. Sometimes, it's like my body forgot how to feel anything at all. And almost every time, I ask one question gently. When was the last time you touched yourself, without rushing, without judgment? The room gets quiet. Sometimes there's a chuckle, sometimes a tear, because deep down they know something's missing. The most common mistake you never knew you were making. Let's clear something up. This isn't about whether or not you masturbate. This is about how. Because here's the truth most men never hear. If you've been doing it the same way for decades, the same hand, same rhythm, same screen, same speed, then you haven't just formed a habit. You've trained your nervous system into a pattern. And if that pattern is rushed, mechanical, disconnected, your body has learned to respond only to that. And eventually, even that might stop working. What started as a release becomes a loop, one that erodes your sensitivity and leaves your body needing more pressure, more friction, more novelty just to feel something. This is not a failing. It's conditioning. It's neurological. And it's reversible. But first, you have to see it. The man who can only climax with intense visual stimulation and feels nothing with a real partner, that's not just getting older. The man who's lost the ability to finish it all, even though he's trying, that's not just stress. That's the result of years of conditioning, years of tension, years of urgency with no attention to sensation or breath or awareness. And for some men, this shows up as erectile dysfunction. For others, it's delayed ejaculation. For others still, it's total numbness, not just physically, but emotionally. Because when your body forgets how to feel, your spirit does too. When habit becomes harmful. I once sat across from a man named James, 71, widower, sharp mind, warm eyes, but he told me something that broke my heart. I still want to feel. I just don't think my body knows how anymore. He wasn't sick. He wasn't depressed. But he was slowly shutting down. And what we uncovered was this. For years after his wife passed, he tried to maintain some connection to pleasure, but he didn't know how. So he defaulted to what was familiar, quick, private, hurried sessions, always with porn. No emotion, no intention, just trying to feel something before the loneliness caught up. Over time, it stopped working. His body had become so used to one narrow path of stimulation that it no longer recognized anything else. This is more common than you think. In fact, it's likely happening to millions of men right now, quietly, privately, without ever realizing that the solution is not to stop, but to change how they approach it. Because self-pleasure done without attention is like revving your car engine in park. You burn energy, you make noise, but you don't go anywhere. And over time, that engine wears down. But done with presence, with breath, stillness, exploration, it becomes something else entirely. Something healing, something life-giving. When you stop altogether, what no one tells you. Now, here's where it gets even more complicated. Some men hear all this and say, well, then maybe I should just stop touching myself altogether. And for some, that's what they do. They cut it off completely, out of fear, out of shame, out of confusion. But here's the part almost no one talks about. Stopping completely, especially after 60, may actually increase your risk of real, measurable health issues, not just in the bedroom, but in the rest of your body. Your prostate, for example, does not shut down just because you stop having sex. It keeps producing fluid. And when that fluid is released, it builds up. That congestion leads to inflammation. That inflammation leads to discomfort. And over time, it becomes a breeding ground for bigger problems, even elevated cancer risk. I've had patients wake up 6 times a night to pee. They think it's just age. But when I ask, when was the last time you ejaculated? They look at me like I asked them to time travel. Some haven't in years. And once they start again, gently, intentionally, their symptoms improve, not overnight, but meaningfully. That's because ejaculation isn't just a release. It's part of your body's detox system. When ignored for too long, the results aren't just frustrating, they're dangerous. Your nervous system never stops listening. Here's the most beautiful truth I've learned from working with thousands of men. Your body wants to reconnect. Your nervous system is always listening. It wants to heal. It wants to remember what it feels like to be present, not just with a partner, but with yourself. But it doesn't happen through force or shame or trying to fix something. It happens through attention, through breath, through curiosity, through the simple, radical idea that you're still worthy of touch, not for performance, but for presence. And if there's one message I want you to take from this first part of our journey, it's this. You are not broken. You are retrainable. You are still here, and there's still time. In the next part, we're going to go deeper. We'll look at how shame affects your hormones, how touch, or the absence of it, shapes your testosterone, your mental health, even your memory, and how one small shift in how you approach your body can create a ripple effect that changes how you show up in your life. But for now, I want you to pause. Not with guilt, not with fear, with awareness. Ask yourself, when was the last time I touched myself not to escape, but to connect? The answer to that question may be the doorway to a whole new chapter. Let's continue where we left off. You now understand that the way you touch yourself, or choose not to, shapes far more than just what happens in private. It shapes your nervous system. It affects your prostate. It influences your sleep, mood, circulation, and emotional connection. But what if I told you that this also directly affects one of the most important chemicals in your body, your testosterone? And what if I told you that shame, silence, and emotional distance don't just weigh on your heart, they push your hormone levels lower? Because that's exactly what's happening to men all over the world. The hormone of masculinity, and why it's listening. We're told testosterone simply fades with age, that your 60s and 70s are just a slow sunset of drive, strength, and edge. But I've worked with thousands of men, and what I've seen says otherwise. Yes, testosterone declines naturally over time, but it doesn't plummet without cause. In fact, for many men, the steepest drop happens not because of age, but because of disconnection. Disconnection from purpose. Disconnection from movement. Disconnection from pleasure. Disconnection from your own body. The moment you stop engaging with the parts of yourself that feel alive, your body responds in kind. It turns the volume down, not because something is wrong, but because it assumes you're done needing that drive. This is the part no one explains. Your body responds to what you pay attention to. Stop stimulating your senses, your muscles, your sexual energy. And yes, your testosterone production slows. But when you re-engage, even gently, when you give your body a reason to produce testosterone again, you can change the slope of that decline. Frank's story, from fog to fire. Let me introduce you to Frank. 73, retired firefighter. Strong frame, proud man. But when he walked into my office, I barely recognized the strength he once carried. He told me, I feel like I'm fading. Not sick, not in pain, just not himself. We ran labs. His testosterone was low, but not dangerously low. What concerned me more was his belief that there was no point trying anymore. I asked him when he last felt turned on, by anything, not just sexually, anything that made him feel powerful, excited, grounded in his body. He couldn't answer. So we started slow. No pills, no procedures. Just this, 10 minutes a day, alone, no screen, no distractions. just Frank in his body, breathing, noticing, exploring without judgment. It wasn't about climax. It was about reconnection. And within weeks, something shifted. He stood taller. He laughed more. His appetite came back, for food, for movement, for life. And yes, his testosterone rose. It didn't skyrocket, but it didn't have to. His body simply remembered, oh, we still need this. That was enough. You don't need a partner to wake up your system. One of the biggest myths men believe is this. If you're not having sex, your body has no reason to stay sexually active. But that's not true. Solo stimulation, when done consciously, can send the same signal to your endocrine system as partnered intimacy. I'm still here. I still want to feel. I still need my body working. That's not wishful thinking. That's biology. Studies show that sexual arousal, even without orgasm, stimulates testosterone. That anticipation and physical engagement affect hormone regulation, mood, and even immune function. The key is not who you're with. The key is how present you are. You don't need a lover to light your fire. You need attention, breath, intention. The hidden impact of shame on the male brain. Now, let's talk about something harder. Something deeper. Shame. The quiet, invisible kind. The kind you don't talk about. The kind you carry in your shoulders, your posture, your silence. It starts early. Maybe a religious upbringing. Maybe a strict household. Maybe locker room jokes that made you tuck away your questions, your curiosity, your desire. And that shame didn't disappear. It went underground. It shaped how you view your body, how you view pleasure, how you view yourself. So when someone tells you, touch yourself, your first instinct might be to laugh it off, to say, I'm too old for that. Or worse, that's not something real men do. But those words aren't yours. They were taught to you. They were pushed into your nervous system long before you knew what they meant. And now, decades later, they still whisper in your ear when your hand reaches down and your brain says, don't. What shame does to your biology. Here's what you need to understand. Shame isn't just emotional. It's physical. It changes your chemistry. Shame increases cortisol, your stress hormone. It tightens your muscles. It disrupts sleep. It interferes with your brain's reward system. It even dulls dopamine, the very chemical you need to feel pleasure. Over time, shame becomes its own loop. You feel guilt for wanting pleasure. You stop seeking it. You feel worse. You stop moving. Your hormones drop. You feel more numb. And then you believe it's just aging. But it's not. It's conditioning. And it can be unlearned. Michael's turning point. Michael was 72, divorced for 10 years. No serious health issues, but emotionally flat. He used to be a musician. Now he barely touched his guitar. Or himself. I just assumed that chapter was over, he told me. But he wasn't depressed. He wasn't sick. He was ashamed. Not loudly. Quietly. He believed he wasn't allowed to want any more. I gave him one task. Every morning, spend 5 minutes with his body. Not to perform. Not to reach any goal. Just to notice. To touch without pressure. To feel what was still there. It felt silly at first. But he committed. And after 2 weeks, something changed. His mood lifted. He started sleeping deeper. He picked up his guitar again. His smile came back. His testosterone nudged upward. But more importantly, he did, because what Michael discovered, and what I want you to remember, is this. Touching yourself at this stage of life is an indulgence. It's medicine. What happens when you stop responding to touch? Now, let's go deeper into the consequences of stopping altogether. I don't mean the occasional dry spell. I mean when a man completely stops engaging with his body, out of grief, shame, or habit. At first, nothing seems to change. But slowly you notice things. Your sleep worsens. Your belly softens. Your muscles shrink. Your mind becomes foggy. Your motivation dips. And because these changes are slow, you chalk it up to getting older. But underneath, your systems are winding down from lack of input. That's not aging. That's silence. Erectile function is not optional. Let me say this clearly. Erectile health is not just about sex. It's about blood flow, cardiovascular function, hormonal balance, emotional vitality. And here's the hard truth. If you stop having erections, even solo, your body starts losing capacity to have them at all. Not because you're broken, but because your body assumes that part of you is no longer needed. Smooth muscle begins to atrophy. blood vessels lose elasticity. Nitric oxide production drops. And your ability to respond fades, not because you can't, but because your body forgot how. It's use it or lose it. And it's never too late to start using it again, with care, with patience, with dignity. You deserve connection, even with yourself. So many men go numb because they stop being touched. By others, by themselves, by life, not because they want to, but because no one told them they're still allowed to feel. You're allowed to reach your own body and say, I still matter. You're allowed to feel pleasure, not for someone else's benefit, but for your own healing. You're allowed to turn the lights back on, because the real danger isn't desire, it's isolation. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in part 3. How isolation affects your heart, your immune system, and your brain. Why touch, even non-sexual, is one of the most powerful forms of medicine. And how to build a simple, grounded daily ritual that reawakens your vitality without shame or pressure. We've walked this far together. Let's keep going. If you're still with me, that tells me something important. You're ready to unlearn the shame, ready to look at your body and your history without judgment, ready to rediscover what it means to feel present, alive, and connected to yourself. In part 1, we explore the hidden ways masturbation affects your nervous system. In part 2, we looked at the relationship between self-touch, testosterone, and emotional health. Now, in this final chapter, we're going to talk about something even deeper. Not hormones, not technique, not even pleasure, but what happens when a man goes untouched, not just by others, but by himself, for too long. Let's begin. The quietest epidemic no one talks about. There's something I've seen over and over again in my practice, and it doesn't show up in blood tests or x-rays. It shows up in posture, in the way a man carries himself when he walks into the room, in the way he talks about his life in the past tense, in the way his hands have forgotten what they were made for. It's isolation, not just loneliness. Deeper than that, the isolation of living in a body you stopped touching, stopped listening to, stopped trusting. It doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks in gradually. You stop dating, then you stop imagining, then you stop touching yourself. Eventually, you stop looking in the mirror altogether. I call this emotional hibernation. And while it may feel safe, it comes at a devastating cost. What happens when we stop being touched? You may not know this, but your skin, even now, is a living organ of connection. It's wired to receive, to translate pressure into presence, to say to your nervous system, you are not alone. When you go too long without physical contact, any contact, your body begins to shift into defense mode. Oxytocin levels drop, cortisol rises, blood pressure increases, immune response weakens, and your brain slowly begins to dim emotional and sensory circuits to protect you from the pain of disconnection. That's not a metaphor. That's neurology. Your body, starved for touch, starts preparing for withdrawal. And that withdrawal doesn't just affect your energy. It affects your lifespan. Studies have linked lack of touch and chronic emotional isolation to increased risk of heart disease, higher rates of depression, lower cognitive function, and yes, even early death. But perhaps the greatest tragedy is this. You stop believing you are someone worth touching. Peter's story, from resignation to renewal. Peter was 76, a retired engineer, widowed, lived alone for over a decade. When I asked him the last time someone touched him, a hug, a pat on the back, anything, he stared at the floor. A year, he said quietly. No, longer. He didn't say it with sadness. He said it like it was fact, as if he'd quietly accepted that his body's time had passed. But I didn't accept that, because I know what happens when a man returns to touch. I asked Peter to try something simple, not sexual, not even sensual. Each night, after brushing his teeth, to sit down, place his hands on his chest, and take 5 deep breaths. Just that. Hand on heart. Attention on breath. 5 minutes of remembering. This is still mine. After 1 week, he began sleeping better. After 3, his energy shifted. He started smiling again, cooking again, reaching out to old friends. Because when the body is reawakened, even gently, the spirit follows. The danger of emotional starvation. You see, your body doesn't just need food, water, and rest. It needs contact. It needs attention. It needs affirmation that it's still wanted, still worthy. When those signals disappear, your biology doesn't go neutral. It starts to close up, and that's what most men don't understand. They think they're being stoic. They think they're aging with dignity. But really, they're starving for touch, for affection, for the chance to feel human again. This is not weakness. This is wiring. And no pill, no surgery, no supplement can replace what the body was meant to receive through presence and touch. You don't need a partner to heal. Let's get this clear. Yes, intimacy with another person is beautiful. It can be healing, but it is not the only way to reconnect. You do not need a partner to wake up your nervous system. You do not need anyone's permission to feel at home in your body. You need only one thing: your own attention. Intentional, respectful, consistent attention. Not driven by fantasy. Not fueled by performance, but grounded in presence. It can be 10 minutes in the morning, a few minutes before sleep, a quiet walk where you place a hand on your chest and just breathe. And yes, sometimes it can be masturbation, not for escape, but for return. Introducing the daily reconnection ritual. This is what I give my patients when they're ready to begin again. It's called the Golden Protocol. Simple, grounded, respectful. Step 1, quiet. Find a time when you won't be interrupted. Early morning or late evening. This is your time, not to perform, but to return. Step 2, breath. Before you touch your body, touch your breath. 5 deep, steady inhales and exhales. Remind your body, I'm here. Step 3, contact. Place your hands on your skin. Anywhere. Chest, arms, belly. No goal, just presence. Let your body feel the warmth of being claimed. Step 4, exploration. If you choose to touch yourself sexually, do so without pressure. No rushing, no screens, just curiosity, just sensation, just you. Step 5, gratitude. When you finish, whether you climax or not, place your hand over your heart again. 1 breath, 1 simple message. Thank you. That's it. No tricks, no hacks, just connection. And what happens when you do this consistently? Sensitivity returns. Testosterone rises. Sleep deepens. And most importantly, you stop disappearing. Final thoughts. This is about more than pleasure. If you made it this far, I want you to hear this not just as a doctor or a voice on a screen, but as a man who believes in your ability to come back to life. This is not about masturbation. This is about healing the fracture between you and your own body. This is about reclaiming a relationship that was never meant to be lost. You were taught to grow out of desire, to be ashamed of touch, to accept disconnection as a side effect of age. But those were never your truths. They were inherited, and you can leave them behind. Because the truth is, you are not too old. You are not broken. You are not invisible. You are still here, and you still matter. Your body remembers. Your brain can rewire. Your heart can open again. It starts with one decision: to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing, to start living again with presence, with dignity, and with care. So take a deep breath, place your hand on your chest, and whisper to yourself, maybe for the first time in years, I'm still here. I still want to feel, and I'm ready to begin again.